morning. This does seem to be a very significant judgment, and if other councils follow suit, what would it mean for the up to 30,000 migrants currently being housed in hotels across the UK?
Well, there's no doubt it's a significant judgment because it could potentially open the floodgates to a raft of new appeals by various local authorities across the country who are very unhappy at the fact that they've had no real say in the requisition of these hotels in their local authority area for use by asylum seekers. It takes these hotels out of sort of community use, not just for weeks and months, but often years at a time. And in certain communities, you might only have one or two hotels that are a vital resource for these communities, for people to hold weddings and other functions, for tourists visiting the area to be accommodated, and that's just not open to them, and they've had no say in that. And that's why they're using the issue of planning consent, the fact that you have, through the Home Office contractors, a hotel being changed in terms of its usage from a hotel accommodating business people and tourists and whoever else to effectively being used then as a hostel. That, they say, should have required an application to the planning board. Hasn't happened in the vast majority of cases, we understand. And it's that point that they feel they can successfully argue now at the High Court. Clearly, the judgment yesterday shows it is possible to argue that point, and that's given, I think, a lot of hope to local authorities that see real issues in their areas. And we know Nigel Farage has said overnight that the 10 local authorities that Reform now control are looking as a matter of urgency at asylum seeker hotels in their area with a view to mounting similar legal challenges.
And Mark, the problem here really isn't the hotels, right? It's the arrival of tens of thousands of people who need to be housed somewhere. Could this pressure and the likelihood of it being applied in other councils force the government to look at alternative options for housing migrants who cross the English Channel? Could it lead to the use of camps or tented accommodation on former military sites, for example?
Well, I think you make a really good point there, Charlie, because there are growing calls now for the government to consider the likes of sort of larger, either purpose-built or specially adapted camps, a bit in the same way that we did with the Nightingale hospitals, Nightingale camps that can spring up quite quickly with these prefabricated units that can house migrants in conditions that are perhaps a bit more austere than a four-star hotel, but still perfectly suitable. Not only would that then have the desired effect of taking migrants out of town centres or streets near you if they're going into the likes of houses of multiple occupation, but also because the conditions would be a bit more austere, that could act as a disincentive to those coming across the channel. So there are definitely growing calls for that, but at the moment it doesn't seem that the government is seriously considering that as an option. They are, it seems, focused on going down the road of trying dispersal accommodation out in the community. And I think actually that for many people will be an even more unpalatable option than asylum hotels, as controversial as they undoubtedly are. The fact that you can still have significant numbers of asylum seekers, young men usually, a dozen or more in a house of multiple occupation, right in the heart of a community, is something I think that deeply alarms many people right across the country. And because it's a dispersal rather than 210 as it is at the moment, asylum hotels in certain communities, you're talking about dispersal to many, many more communities.